G'day everyone, it's Karl Thomson here from StorageCraft Asia Pacific, and today I'm going to take you through deploying ShadowProtect SPX and the ShadowControl Endpoint agent out to a large organization, and then also configuring a backup schedule so that we can start protecting those machines. So the first thing is, if we go and take a look at the StorageCraft software update page, with SPX we have a silent install option for Windows. So this is MSI based installer. In fact, both installers are MSI based files. However, the silent install is designed around being able to basically apply a transform file to that. So today I'm going to use the 64-bit installer file for SPX for Windows, and I'm also going to use the instructions for a silent install. Additionally, if we just scroll down to the bottom here, the ShadowControl appliance I have installed version 3.01, and within that appliance I'm going to download the endpoint. You could also download that endpoint from here, and that is an MSI installer as well. So again, we'll take a look at that throughout today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect onto my ShadowControl appliance, and I want to get this configured for this organization that I'm going to deploy. So the first thing we'll do is if I go into this icon at the top right here and select Manage Backup Stores. Now this is the first thing you need to do. This is where we define where all of these ShadowProtect agents are going to back up to. So we want to add a backup store. For this purpose of today, I'll just call this customer A, path, NAS/backup share. Now I'm not actually going to use this one, I'm just talking you through the process. Now we need to authenticate to that backup share. Now this could be on your BDR or on your backup server or on a NAS or wherever it is. So put in your credentials. So this is authenticating SPX to this backup store, and click Save. It's pretty straightforward. So that's what I'm going to use for the deployment. Now today I'm actually going to use this one here, my pre-existing backup share, but it's the same process that I have configured there. The key thing here is when SPX via this policy that we're about to create connects to this backup store, it's going to create a separate subfolder within here for each of my servers. I'm not going to get all these backups just ending up in one share. It will create the subfolders automatically for us, which is nice and easy. Now the next thing we're going to do is click on this little icon again and go down to the next option, ShadowProtect SPX policies. So this is where we're going to create a backup policy. Now I've got a couple here and I've labeled them appropriately to what they do. I'm going to add in another backup policy. I'm going to call this, perhaps just for today, we'll call this YouTube protection scheme. I could say just the operating system volume, so in most cases just your C drive, or perhaps just the data volume, so everything else. Perhaps we'll just use all volumes today. The backup store, again, there's the option we just created. I'm going to use this one today. Under compression standards, roughly 40% in most cases, so that's fine. I could use encryption as well, so let's put in a password here to encrypt that up to AES 256-bit. Now the next thing we want to do is define a backup schedule. So if we click on schedule, I'm going to use a continuous incremental job, so we will need to configure image manager after this, but this will give us the backup schedule. So Monday to Friday, let's do an all-day schedule, so 24 hours a day, Monday to Friday, repeat every 15 minutes. What we'll also do is specify start time random delay. So what this means is that when I deploy this to say 50 servers, they're not all going to back up at exactly on the 15-minute point. They're all going to spread out within that time so that we've got backups happening throughout the day and they're not all hitting my backup store at that exact same second. So it's good to spread them out, and obviously I'm going to do it within 15 minutes because that's my repeat schedule. So I'm also going to add in another weekly schedule, and this time we're just going to do Sunday and Saturday, and we'll go from 8 AM till say 6 PM. That's when I have got some staff working perhaps during the day. I'll do these as just hourly backups, they're least important during the weekends. And again, I'll do a random delay within an hour depending on when those backups will happen. So again, for example, at 8 AM, it's not going to immediately start doing backups on Saturday morning. It will spread these backups out amongst all of my servers. So that's nice and easy. And then under advanced, I'm going to leave these settings as default. I mean, that's okay. There are some extra options here if you want to add in scripts, etc. I'm going to click save here. So that is all we have to do to create the policy. We now need to create an organization and assign that policy to the organization. So I'm going to go back up to the top right here, this time click on the spanner and click on organizations. Now under organizations, down the bottom here, I've got some already set up here. I'm going to add an organization. I'm going to call this YouTube. And under the ShadowProtect SPX backup policy, we're going to go and select that YouTube backup policy. So perhaps I'll call this, just to make things easier, I'll call this organization YouTube organization, just so that we can separate things out here rather than calling everything YouTube. And then the SPX backup job, we've selected that policy that we've created. And then when to start the first full backup. Now, when I deploy SPX and the ShadowControl agent, it's an MSI. I'm going to use the group policy-based deployment. That will obviously apply during reboot of the servers. So, you know, let's say I reboot 10 servers overnight. I don't want them all starting their full backup immediately because that, you know, I might tell them all to reboot at 5 in the morning, for example. So I'm going to select a random time as to when it's allowed to start doing its full backup. So I'm going to say any time from 9 p.m. for perhaps, let's say 6 hours. So any time after 9 p.m. within the 6-hour time frame, it's allowed to start doing a full backup. So if I rebooted the server during the day, it would wait until 9 p.m. or sometime within that 6 hours after 9 p.m. as to when it can start its full backup. So again, this is great because if you're deploying out to, again, 50 servers, for example, it means that they're not all going to start a full backup at bang on 9 p.m. It will start at a random time, 6 hours, anytime within 6 hours after 9 p.m. So it just allows you to, again, separate out that load. Now, what we can do down here for this organization is put in primary and secondary contact information, and this is where we can send reports, alerts, and that kind of thing. So again, I'm just going to turn off reporting for the moment because we're going to focus on just the deployment and scheduling today. So I'm going to click save. So if we look down here, we have YouTube organization, and I have 0 endpoints deployed. So we're going to use this organization today. It's got that backup policy already applied to it. So I'm ready to go now from the ShadowControl side of things. So I guess the next step is we need to take a look at these MSI files and get them set up. So if I go back to the dashboard in ShadowControl, and down the right here, you can see endpoint installation instructions. If we click on that, it has a download link here to get the MSI file straight from this appliance. And the great thing about using that is this version of the endpoint will match the appliance. So it makes it nice and easy. It saves us having to go back to the StorageCraft website to get that as well. So it does have some information here on doing a quiet install using a script. I'm actually going to use group policy to deploy the MSI file today. And again, we'll do that along with the SPX MSI that I've downloaded previously from our website here, the 64-bit installer I'll use today. So if we just go and take a look at these files, here I've got the ShadowControl installer. That's an MSI file I've downloaded. And here is the 64-bit. You can see there the GP, the group policy, is amended to that. So there's the 32-bit version, and here are the 32 and 64-bit versions that are, it's basically a manual install. You can just run through, double click on it and run through that installer. And here is a pre-configured MST, which I'm going to use. So the first thing we'll do is open up the Orca utility. So this is just a free download. It's a Microsoft tool. So the first thing in Orca is we need to open up the 64-bit MSI file installer. And then we need to click on transform and create a new transform file. So we can't apply the changes I'm about to make to this MSI file. We need to create a separate file which we're going to attach into group policy. Now, if I jump across to the StorageCraft website, you can see here instructions for silent install. Now in here, we need to locate the property table and then enter in these 4 rows. So I'm going to go back to Orca. We're going to go down and locate property. and we're going to go down to the bottom and enter in the keys. So the first one is I accept StorageCraft.euler. So this is basically accepting the end user license agreement, and it's going to apply that to this. The next one, if I just take a quick look back, is key, then the name, then the organization. So go key. Now with the key, you can put in, if you've got a perpetual license, you need to put in your perpetual key, which will, the 150 pack key will apply to 50 agents. If that key is expired or doesn't have any left, StorageCraft SPX will still install, you just won't be able to, it won't activate. So we can actually deal with that from the ShadowControl appliance quite easily remotely. Again, if you're using MSP installer, you won't be able to, the key will only work for one agent. So it's really for the bigger perpetual deployments where the key is going to help, but you can put in an invalid key and again deal with that later. So we need to do name, Karl Thomson, and then under organization, it's called org, and I'll put in there customer A. So those are the 4 rows we need to add in, and then we click on transform and click generate transform. So this is going to create an MST file. So I'm going to call this karl.mst and click save. So it's that straightforward. Once we're done here, we can click exit out of there. And if I just go and take a look, there's the MST file. Now again, today I am going to use this particular one here that I've pre-done. It's got a serial key in it that I'm going to use. So the next step is to go into our Active Directory server. If I go into Active Directory, I'm going to create a new organization. Let's call this YouTube SPX and click OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this particular server here, RDO1. So we'll use that for our testing today. I'm going to move that into YouTube SPX and click OK. So that server there is going to get the software deployed to it. Now the first thing we need to do is go into Group Policy Management and locate that OU. There it is. Right click, create a GPO in this domain and link it here. Cool, so I'm going to call this SPX and ShadowControl Deploy. Click OK. So there's our organizational unit and there's the group policy object we've created. Right click and edit. And now the first thing I'm going to do is under properties, I'm going to disable user configuration as I'm not going to use that as part of this object. Under policies, software settings, software installation, I'm now going to add in the 2 packages that I have. So first one here is the SPX policy. So I'm going to click open. I'm going to select advanced, okay. And basically what I can define here is a couple of parameters. So firstly under deployment, I could say, look, automatically uninstall if we move that server outside of the scope of management. So if I move that server back out of that, it will automatically uninstall. And the other option I want to change today is under modifications, I want to add in the MST file that I had created. So it's going to pick that up off my shared directory. Okay. So that's all we need to do. And that's done. So SPX is going to automatically install the next time that RDO1 server reboots and picks up that policy. I'm also going to add in the ShadowControl Endpoint agent because it's going to make it easier to do it from here as well. Now with the ShadowControl, currently we don't have an MST file for it. So I'm going to have to use a script to basically have that agent automatically connect itself to my appliance. Otherwise, it's a manual process of connecting on there. So I'm going to use a Windows startup script to do that. And if I go down to Windows settings, scripts, startup, I'm going to add it in here. Now, before I do that, we need to just make a change. I do have a script already set up here. sc_install is what I'm going to use today. Let's take a quick look at that. So for the script, we've got the first thing is that it's going to check if ShadowControl has already been activated, and I'm using a flag file to do that. So if that flag file already exists, then it goes to end and the script won't run. The next thing is it's got to check that ShadowControl is already installed. So if the ShadowControl agent isn't there, it'll also go to the end because we're using group policy to deploy the installer. So if that's not there, it won't run the script. The next thing is to activate ShadowControl. So basically we run the agent and we pass the subscribe, the IP address of my ShadowControl appliance, -u is the username, -p is the password, so this is the username and password to the appliance, and then -o is the organization. So today we've already created an organization, and then you can put colon if you have a site. So I don't have a site today, so I'm going to take that portion out, and under this bit here, we called it YouTube organization. Now let me just double check that spelling. ShadowControl organizations. Pretty sure I just called it YouTube organization. So I'm just going to copy that back to my domain controller, and we're going to edit that organization, YouTube organization. So I put it in inverted commas there just so that it gets that in one piece. That's pretty straightforward. The next thing is once it's done that, it will create a temp directory, and then it will register the appliance. So basically it's just making a note here in a text file and a flag file to say that we've done that successfully. Now, if once that's created, that basically is what the same file here this is checking for, so that it won't run this again. Now, if it did run it again, there's no problem. It just makes sure that it's attached. You can't resubscribe. If it's already subscribed successfully, then it's all good. So that's just how I've configured it. You're welcome to copy parts of the script or use this for your silent registration process as well. And that's basically it from there. Now, I'll need to save that. So now if we pop back to the group policy, I'm going to add in the script. So I need to browse for the script, and I have got a share for this, DC01 shared, open that SC install. So that's the script it's going to run. I don't have any additional parameters. Click OK and apply. So I have now got a Windows startup script as well as the two MSI installations here, and that is all I need to do. So again, that's group policy. We're finished in there. Active Directory, there's the server is applied to that organization. I'm finished in there. So let's go take a look at RD01 server. Here it is here. Make that full screen, and let's go ahead and reboot the server. Continue. So this server's rebooting. At this point, it should pick up the group policy, and then it should start installing ShadowProtect SPX as well as the ShadowControl Endpoint agent. So it's just through the process of starting up. We should get some visual of what it's doing in a few moments, and we'll just follow this through. Once SPX is installed, it will, during this process, reboot again to register the low-level kernel driver. So it's great that it's not going to boot into Windows and then manually have to reboot. It will do that as part of this process. So it's installed SPX. It's also now installing the ShadowControl. That bit is done, and you can see here it's a very quick process to do that. It's now stopping the services and rebooting that server again to register that SPX low-level kernel driver. This time, as Windows starts up, it will go ahead and run that silent install script, which will automatically register my ShadowControl agent to the appliance. So it basically just means it's all hands off, and once that's done, we should see that it will pick up the policy from ShadowControl appliance and start protecting this machine. So the server's just logging in now. That script should have run. So if we take a look here under Windows Explorer, C drive, temp, that there should indicate the flag file that it has been activated. So if we take a look under Program Files, StorageCraft, CMD, and just scroll down, ShadowControl GUI. So we can see here it is successfully subscribed to the appliance on port 443. So that activation has already happened, which is great. Let's go and take a look at the appliance, and then we'll jump back and take a look at SPX. So if we take a look at this organization, we can see here it has one endpoint assigned for that YouTube organization. If we click on Assign Endpoints and select YouTube organization, there is our RD01 server. Now if we take another look at this organization, this time I'm going to go Edit. we've got here our SPX backup policy of YouTube we created earlier. I'm going to tell it to start that full backup immediately, so we can take a look at that right now and click Save. And again, if we go to Endpoints and then take a look down here at RD01, we'll see here it has the YouTube backup policy. Now down here it will list the backup policy. It does seem to take a few minutes before it appears here, but if we go and jump back onto this RD01 server, we should see that that backup is taking place. So jump back over to the server, click on the ShadowProtect SPX. So I've got to log in here, click connect, and it is now, we can see here it's well and truly underway of doing that full backup because we said do it immediately. What is really cool here is if I try and delete this backup job, you can't interfere with the job because it is locked down to the ShadowControl backup policy. So in fact, even once that full's finished, I can't edit the job, I can't manually tell it to increment. It is all managed via the ShadowControl appliance. So basically that's it. We've deployed SPX and ShadowControl. We've used a script to auto apply it to the appliance. It has automatically picked up the organization and started running the SPX backup policy that we've applied. So hopefully this has been helpful for you, and any further questions, if you want to get a hold of the script or learn more about it or discuss it, then feel free to get in touch. Again, my name is Karl Thomson from StorageCraft Asia Pacific.